All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Ah, yeah.
Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a classic.
Yeah, it's kind of a classic, and a lot of people, either love it or hate it.
Right.
But it's a personal finance book, and it's got a lot of unconventional advice, I think, about building wealth. And, what's interesting is some of his ideas, even the ones that sound a little bit crazy, are kind of playing out right now in our economy.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how some of the things that he was talking about years ago are becoming more and more relevant today.
Yeah, for sure. So uh, we're going to try to distill some of the key ideas from this book and just kind of see, what we can learn from it and how we can maybe apply it to our own lives.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, cool. So
Mm.
uh, the book is based on this idea of Kiyosaki learning about money from two dads, right?
Yeah, two dads. So he had his biological father, who he refers to as Poor Dad throughout the book,
Okay.
and then his best friend's father, who he calls Rich Dad. And their contrasting views on money and wealth really form the foundation of the whole book.
So it's not just about like dollars and cents. It's about how these two dads thought about money.
Exactly. It's really about mindset. And Kiyosaki argues that it's the poor dad mindset that keeps people trapped in the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck.
Okay, interesting. So how does he illustrate that?
Well, he actually tells this story about when he was just a kid, like 9 years old, working for Rich Dad at his convenience store.
Okay.
And, the first thing that Rich Dad did was offer him a job for a really low wage, like 10 cents an hour.
10 cents an hour. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, can you imagine that today?
Kids today would be like, no way.
Right, exactly. But there was a method to Rich Dad's madness.
Okay, so there's a lesson there.
Absolutely. So eventually, Rich Dad stopped paying Kiyosaki altogether, making him work for free.
Work for free. Wow.
Yeah, and this was all to teach him a really valuable lesson,
Okay, well, that was a lesson.
that trading your time for money is a losing game. Rich Dad wanted him to understand that the real key to wealth is building assets, things that put money in your pocket, rather than just earning a higher salary.
So, like, what kind of assets are we talking about here?
Well, think about rental properties
Hmm.
or a business that generates income, even dividend-paying stocks.
Okay.
These are all examples of assets that can work for you even while you're sleeping.
So that's that famous lesson, right? Rich don't work for money. They have the money working for them.
Exactly. That's the core principle.
Okay, so that's rich dad. Now, what about poor dad? What was his philosophy?
Well, Poor Dad was all about job security and climbing the corporate ladder, getting a good education.
The traditional path.
Exactly, the traditional path. But Kiyosaki argues that this can actually lead to what he calls the rat race.
Okay, I've heard that term, the rat race. What does he mean by that?
Well, it's this cycle, where people work hard to earn money and then they just spend that money on bills and expenses and they never really get ahead.
Okay, so they're kind of stuck.
They're stuck. Yeah, and often they end up accumulating liabilities that they think are assets.
Ooh, that's interesting. Like, what kind of liabilities?
Well, things like, a fancy car that loses value the minute you drive it off the lot,
Oh, yeah.
or even a big house with a huge mortgage that eats up all your cash flow.
Okay, so it's not just about making money. It's about understanding the difference between assets and liabilities.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki argues that traditional education often doesn't teach us this crucial difference.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how do we break free from this rat race then?
Well, Kiyosaki believes it all starts with financial literacy.
Okay.
It's about understanding how money works, how to manage it, how to invest it, and how to make it work for you.
So it's kind of like a whole new way of thinking about money.
Exactly. It's a mindset shift.
And it's scary to think about this, but you hear stories about lottery winners and professional athletes who end up broke
Oh, yeah. All the time.
because they have all this money, but they don't have that financial literacy to manage it.
Right. They haven't developed that financial intelligence.
Okay, so back to this idea of minding your own business. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it's about taking control of your financial future.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily mean starting a traditional business.
Okay.
It could be anything that generates income and builds your asset column.
So give me an example.
Well, remember the story of Ray Kroc?
The McDonald's guy.
Yeah, the founder of McDonald's. He famously said that he wasn't in the hamburger business, he was in the real estate business.
Okay, so he was thinking about the underlying assets.
Exactly. He understood that the real value was in the land and the buildings that his restaurants were on.
So it's about seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's what Kiyosaki means by minding your own business. It's about understanding the assets that drive wealth.
Okay, but how can someone starting out, someone who's not a millionaire or a business tycoon, apply that to their own life.
Well, it's about leveraging your skills and resources,
Uh-huh.
even on a small scale.
Okay.
So let's say you're really good at baking.
Okay, I love baking.
Could you start a side hustle selling your baked goods?
Maybe.
Or maybe you're great at social media.
Hmm.
Could you offer your services to local businesses?
I see what you're saying. So it's about thinking creatively about how to generate income and build assets.
Exactly. It's about being resourceful and finding opportunities where others might not see them.
That's cool. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad also gets into some pretty complicated stuff, right?
Oh, yeah, it definitely does.
Like how the wealthy use corporations to their advantage, especially when it comes to taxes.
Right, that's a big part of the book.
So can you explain that a little bit?
Well, Kiyosaki argues that the tax system historically wasn't designed to burden the middle class the way it does now.
Okay.
And he shows how corporations, when used strategically, can offer tax benefits that aren't available to employees.
So it's about understanding the system and using it to your advantage.
Exactly. And this leads us to another one of Kiyosaki's key lessons: the rich invent money.
Oh, okay. I like that one. What does that mean?
Well, it's about being creative, spotting opportunities that others miss, and not being afraid to take calculated risks.
So like being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, kind of like that. But it's also about having a certain mindset, a willingness to think outside the box.
Okay.
And he gives this really interesting example about Alexander Graham Bell.
Oh, yeah, the telephone guy.
Exactly. So when Bell tried to sell the patent for the telephone to Western Union, they turned him down.
Really?
Yeah, can you imagine passing up on that opportunity?
Oh my gosh, that would be terrible.
It's a classic example of how people often miss out on huge opportunities because they're not thinking creatively or they're too afraid to take a risk.
So Rich Dad, Poor Dad is all about challenging those conventional ways of thinking about money.
Exactly. It's about developing your financial intelligence and being open to new possibilities.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But how do we actually overcome those obstacles that keep us from building wealth?
That's a great question, and Rich Dad Poor Dad actually outlines 5 main obstacles.
Okay, give them to me.
All right, so the first one is fear.
Fear? Okay.
The second is cynicism.
Mm.
Then there's laziness.
Laziness? Yeah, we all struggle with that sometimes.
Then bad habits.
Oh, yeah.
And finally, arrogance.
Okay, so those are the 5 things we need to overcome.
Exactly. Those are the internal roadblocks that can prevent us from achieving our financial goals.
Okay, and he illustrates these with stories, right?
Oh, yeah. Tons of stories.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, he tells this great story about when his rich dad took him to the Alamo to teach him about how Texans view failure.
The Alamo, okay, I gotta hear this one.
Well, Rich Dad wanted to show young Kiyosaki that failure is part of the journey
Okay.
and that it's important to learn from your mistakes and keep moving forward. He even said that in Texas, the bigger your failure, the more respect you get.
Wow, that's a different way of looking at it.
Right. It's about embracing failure as a learning opportunity.
I like that. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, you have.
But I want to get to the practical stuff. What specific things did Kiyosaki do to build wealth?
Well, one story that really stands out to me is when he bought a small condo as an investment property. He managed to find a great deal in a down market and turned a quick profit with minimal effort.
So he was being opportunistic.
Exactly. He saw an opportunity and he took action.
Okay.
And it wasn't about some complex strategy. It was about recognizing a simple opportunity and acting on it.
So it's not just about knowing the theory, it's about actually doing it.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that a lot in the book.
Yeah. And he also talks about the importance of finding mentors.
Right?
Right?
Oh, yeah. Mentors are crucial.
People who have already achieved success in the areas that you want to grow in.
Exactly. It's like having a real-life rich dad to guide you.
Yeah, that makes sense. But one thing I'm wondering is,
What's that?
well, he talks about specific to-dos for building wealth.
Right, he does.
Can you give us a sneak peek at a personalized list, maybe tailored to someone listening right now?
Yeah. I can definitely do that. But first, there's something else from Rich Dad, Poor Dad I think you'll find interesting. You know how Kiyosaki emphasizes that money is just an idea? What if we could invent money?
Okay, now you've really got me thinking. I mean, that sounds like alchemy or something, turning lead into gold. But how does that actually play out in the real world?
Well, he gives this example of his friend who buys these old rundown houses, right? And then he fixes them up and sells them for a profit.
Okay.
He's essentially creating value, turning something that was considered a liability into an asset.
So it's about using your skills and creativity to find opportunities where other people might just see problems.
Exactly, and it doesn't have to be some complicated scheme.
Right.
Kiyosaki talks about how he made his first real estate investment by just buying a small condo at a bargain price.
Okay.
He saw an opportunity in a down market, and he took action.
So it's that theme again, right? It's
It-
not enough to just have ideas. You got to actually do something.
Absolutely, and he encourages us to start small, to learn by doing, and to gradually build our financial intelligence and confidence.
Okay, so start small. Learn by doing.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, he also talks about this thing called the cash flow quadrant.
Oh, yeah, the cash flow quadrant.
It's like a framework for understanding the different ways people earn money, right?
Exactly. So there are four quadrants.
Okay.
You've got the E quadrant for employees,
Okay.
the S quadrant for self-employed or small business owners, the B quadrant for business owners with systems,
Okay.
and then the I quadrant for investors.
And he argues that the B and I quadrants are where the real financial freedom is, right?
Right, because in the B quadrant, you're building a business that can operate without you being constantly involved.
Okay.
And in the I quadrant, your money is working for you, generating passive income.
So it's not about everyone becoming a CEO or a Wall Street investor,
Right.
but about finding the path that aligns with your strengths and your goals?
Exactly. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad provides a roadmap for navigating those different paths and developing the skills and mindset you need to succeed.
Okay, cool. Now, I remember that story about Kiyosaki wanting to buy a Porsche.
Oh, yeah, the Porsche story.
He resisted the urge to get a loan, and instead he challenged himself to create an asset that would generate enough income to buy the car outright.
It's a great example of how he used his desire for a luxury item as motivation to fuel his financial creativity.
So it's about being smart with your money and not letting your emotions control your spending.
Exactly. And it highlights a crucial principle from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first. Now, I think a lot of people misunderstand what that means.
Oh, yeah, they think it means being selfish or neglecting your bills.
Right.
But it's actually the opposite.
Okay.
It's about prioritizing your financial future by setting aside a portion of your income for savings and investments before you pay your bills or make any other purchases.
So it's about putting your financial well-being first.
Exactly. It's about creating a habit of consistently investing in yourself.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what if someone is living paycheck to paycheck? How can they possibly pay themselves first?
Well, that's where creativity and discipline come in.
Yeah.
It might mean cutting back on expenses, finding ways to earn extra income, or even starting with just a small amount, like $5 or $10 a week.
So it's about shifting your mindset and finding ways to make it work, even if it seems impossible at first.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki argues that by developing this habit, even when it's tough, you're building a foundation for long-term financial success.
I like that. Now, another thing that stood out to me was his emphasis on finding mentors.
Oh, yeah, mentors are so important.
He learned so much from his rich dad, who guided him and challenged him to think differently about money.
Right, but not everyone has a mentor like that in their life.
That's true. So what do we do?
Well, Kiyosaki encourages us to seek out mentors in the areas where we want to grow, whether it's investing, entrepreneurship, or any other field.
Okay, so be proactive.
Exactly. Attend seminars, read books, reach out to people you admire, and ask for advice.
So it's about taking the initiative and finding the guidance we need.
Exactly. And he reminds us that mentors don't have to be millionaires or gurus. They can be anyone who has achieved a level of success, that we aspire to anyone who can offer valuable insights and perspective.
That's a good point. It's about recognizing that everyone has something to teach us.
Exactly. And by being open to learning from others, we can accelerate our own growth and achieve our financial goals more quickly.
That's awesome. You know, we've talked a lot about the positive aspects of Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Yeah,
but it's also important to acknowledge that the book has received some criticism over the years.
that's true. Some people have questioned the validity of Kiyosaki's claims, pointing to inconsistencies in his personal story and a lack of concrete evidence to support some of his investment strategies.
Okay.
And others have argued that his advice oversimplifies the complexities of the financial world and might not be suitable for everyone.
So it's important to be aware of those criticisms and to approach Rich Dad, Poor Dad with a critical mind.
Absolutely.
It's a thought-provoking book,
It is.
but it's not a financial Bible.
Right. It's not the be-all and end-all.
So what are some things we should keep in mind as we evaluate Kiyosaki's ideas and determine what resonates with us?
Well, I think it's crucial to remember that everyone's financial situation and goals are unique.
Okay.
What works for one person might not work for another.
So it's about taking the principles from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and adapting them to our own individual circumstances.
Exactly. And it's also about doing our own research, seeking advice from qualified professionals, and making informed decisions based on our own risk tolerance and financial goals.
So it's about being smart and responsible.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of your financial future.
I like that. Now, one of the most memorable parts of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the story of Kiyosaki and his friend Mike working for Rich Dad for free at his convenience store.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic story.
It's a great illustration of how Rich Dad used unconventional methods to teach valuable lessons about money, business, and life.
Right. He really pushed them to think outside the box.
Yeah, remember how he challenged them to find ways to make money even though they weren't being paid?
Exactly. He wanted them to develop their entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, like when they started that comic book library in Mike's basement.
Oh, yeah, that was a great example of their creativity and
That was
resourcefulness.
a hands-on lesson in entrepreneurship.
Right. They learned about cash flow, customer service, and the importance of creating value.
And it shows that even though the business eventually closed, it was a valuable learning experience that shaped their understanding of how to generate income.
Exactly. It's all about those learning experiences.
It's a great reminder that failure is a part of the journey and that every experience, even the ones that don't work out the way we planned, can offer valuable lessons.
Absolutely. Every experience is an opportunity to learn and grow.
He really emphasizes the learning by doing aspect of financial education.
Yeah, he's all about taking action.
It's not enough to just read about it.
Right. You have to get out there and actually try things.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, he also talks about the importance of developing your financial genius.
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating concept.
What exactly does he mean by that?
Well, he's talking about cultivating a mindset of abundance, creativity, and financial intelligence.
Okay.
It's about seeing opportunities where others might see only risks and being willing to think outside the box when it comes to generating wealth.
Okay, I like that.
He gives the example of his friend who buys old rundown houses, fixes them up, and then sells them for a profit.
Oh yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great example of someone using their financial genius to create value and generate income.
So it's about seeing potential where others might not.
Exactly. It's about having a vision and then taking action to make that vision a reality.
And he stresses that developing your financial genius is a lifelong pursuit.
Absolutely.
It's about constantly learning, growing, and adapting to the ever-changing world of finance.
Right. It's a journey, not a destination.
You know, we've talked a lot about the practical aspects of Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Yeah, we have.
but it's also a book that can be quite inspiring.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It challenges us to think big, to set ambitious financial goals, and to believe in our ability to achieve them.
It's about empowering yourself.
Exactly, and he tells some pretty amazing stories about how he's applied his own financial genius to create wealth.
Right. From buying real estate at bargain prices to investing in small cap stocks with the potential for rapid growth.
And while his examples might seem extraordinary,
Yeah, they can be pretty out there.
he emphasizes that anyone can develop their financial genius and achieve financial success, regardless of their background or current circumstances.
Exactly. It's about believing in yourself and your ability to learn and grow.
And it's not about getting rich quick.
No, it's definitely not about that.
He's all about a patient, disciplined approach to investing.
Right. Slow and steady wins the race.
He talks about planting seeds in your asset column, nurturing those seeds and watching them grow over time.
It's a beautiful analogy for the power of compound growth.
I love that analogy. It's about having a long-term perspective and being consistent with your efforts.
Exactly. And it's about understanding that financial success is a journey, not a destination.
And he argues that the rich have always found ways to use the tax code to their advantage, often by utilizing corporations and other legal entities.
Yeah, it's a perspective that can be controversial, but it's definitely something to think about.
For sure. And it highlights the importance of understanding how the system works and finding ways to legally minimize your tax burden.
Absolutely, knowledge is power when it comes to taxes.
Okay, so another important lesson from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the importance of overcoming your fears.
Oh yeah, fear can be a major roadblock.
He encourages us to face our fears head on, to take calculated risks, and to not let fear paralyze us.
It's about stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Remember the story about his rich dad taking him to the Alamo?
Oh yeah, to teach him about courage and facing adversity.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that failure is a part of the learning process, and that by embracing risk and overcoming our fears, we can achieve great things.
That's a great lesson.
Kiyosaki also talks about how cynicism can cloud our judgment and prevent us from seeing opportunities.
Right, cynicism can be a real downer.
He encourages us to be open-minded, to be willing to consider new ideas, and to not let our doubts and fears limit our potential.
It's about having a positive outlook.
And he also emphasizes the importance of overcoming laziness and developing good financial habits.
Yeah, laziness and bad habits can really sabotage your progress.
He talks about how procrastination and a lack of discipline can derail our financial success.
It's about taking control of your finances and making consistent effort.
And he encourages us to be proactive, to take consistent action towards our goals, and to never give up on our dreams.
It's about having a vision and then taking the steps to make that vision a reality.
You know, one thing that really struck me about Rich Dad, Poor Dad
Yeah.
is how Kiyosaki emphasizes the importance of being a good teacher as well as a good student.
Oh, yeah, he talks about how his rich dad was always teaching him and his friend Mike about money and business, even when they were young boys.
And he encourages us to share our knowledge and experience with others to help them achieve their financial goals and to create a ripple effect of abundance.
It's about paying it forward.
Exactly. And he also talks about how teaching others helps us solidify our own understanding of the concepts we're teaching.
It's true, when you teach something, you really have to understand it deeply yourself.
So it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so back to the basics. One of the key lessons from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is understanding the difference between assets and liabilities.
Oh, yeah, that's fundamental.
It's a concept that Kiyosaki emphasizes throughout the book.
He talks about how the rich focus on acquiring assets, while the poor and middle class often accumulate liabilities that they think are assets.
And remember his famous line, "Your house is not an asset."
Yeah, that one caused quite a stir.
But his point is that a house is only an asset if it generates income or appreciates in value.
Right, if it's just costing you money, it's a liability.
And Rich Dad, Poor Dad encourages us to shift our mindset and to start thinking about our spending in terms of assets and liabilities.
It's about making conscious choices about where our money is going.
So it's about building a solid financial foundation.
Exactly.
You know, one thing I find really inspiring about Rich Dad, Poor Dad is how Kiyosaki encourages us to think outside the box when it comes to creating wealth.
Oh, yeah, he's all about being creative and finding unconventional ways to generate income.
He talks about how the rich often invent money, finding innovative ways to build assets.
He gives the example of Alexander Graham Bell being turned down by Western Union for his telephone patent.
Yeah, and then Bell went on to create a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the greatest opportunities are often overlooked by those who are afraid to take risks or who are stuck in conventional thinking.
So we need to develop our financial genius
Absolutely.
and be willing to challenge the status quo.
Kiyosaki provides some really interesting examples of how he's applied that financial genius in his own life.
Yeah, from buying real estate at bargain prices to investing in those small cap stocks that have the potential for rapid growth.
And it's not about getting rich quick.
Right, it's about developing a sustainable long-term approach to wealth creation.
Exactly. It's about using your financial intelligence to create a life of abundance, purpose, and freedom.
I like that. And you know, while Rich Dad, Poor Dad offers a lot of specific advice, one thing that really resonated with me was his emphasis on those 5 obstacles that even financially literate people might face.
Oh, yeah, those are important to remember.
Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance.
Those are the internal roadblocks that can really hold us back.
Yeah, it's like you can know everything about stocks and real estate,
Yeah.
but if you're crippled by fear of failure, you won't take action.
He tells that great story about his rich dad taking him to the Alamo.
The Alamo.
Yeah, apparently in Texas, the bigger your failures, the more respect you earn. It's about getting back up after setbacks.
That's a great lesson. So overcoming fear is key. But what about cynicism?
Well, cynicism can blind you to opportunities. You need an open mind, a willingness to consider new ideas even if they seem unconventional.
Okay, and then there's laziness.
Yeah, we all struggle with that sometimes.
I know I do. Kiyosaki's pretty blunt about this. Laziness will sabotage your financial success,
He's all about being proactive, taking consistent action, and staying disciplined.
even when it's tough.
Exactly.
And I think bad habits go hand in hand with laziness.
Oh, for sure.
Overspending, relying on credit cards, not tracking your expenses.
Those are all bad habits that can keep you stuck.
He stresses the importance of developing good habits, like paying yourself first, saving regularly, and investing wisely.
It's about making your financial well-being a priority.
Exactly. And finally, he talks about arrogance.
Ah, yes, arrogance.
It's easy to think we know it all, especially when we start to see some success.
But arrogance can lead to costly mistakes.
Kiyosaki encourages humility, being willing to learn from others and always seeking new knowledge.
It's about recognizing that no matter how much we know, there's always more to learn.
especially in the world of finance. So we've explored a lot here today, those core lessons, the obstacles to overcome, and how Rich Dad Poor Dad encourages us to think differently about money.
It's a book that pushes you to examine your beliefs about wealth, to challenge conventional wisdom, and to take control of your financial future.
But Rich Dad Poor Dad isn't just about reading and absorbing information, it's about taking action.
Absolutely.
Kiyosaki wants you to apply what you learn to start building your own path to financial freedom.
He leaves us with a powerful question.
Okay, what's the question?
If money is just an idea, how can we start changing our thinking to create more wealth in our lives?
That's a great question to end on. It challenges us to examine our beliefs about money and to consider that maybe, just maybe, we have more power to shape our financial reality than we realize.
Exactly. Rich Dad Poor Dad isn't a magic formula, but it's a powerful reminder that our mindset, our habits, and our willingness to take action can have a huge impact on our financial well-being.
So to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep learning, keep growing, and never stop investing in yourself. That's the best investment you can make.
Until next time, keep diving deep.